How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. You guys are passionate. I like it.
Thank you. We really go at it sometimes. Are you ready?
Absolutely. Let's dive in.
All right, let me hit you with the first one.
Sure.
So you have told us that you know a lot of funny facts about William Lyon Mackenzie King.
I do.
What is the strangest fact that you know?
The strangest fact that I know, and by far the strangest fact about William Lyon Mackenzie King, although there are so many, he was a beautiful man. He sincerely believed that he could communicate with dead spirits who would tell him how to run the country.
No, I believe that.
Yeah. So he would, and
his dead mother, right?
His dead mother, Wilfrid Laurier, and his dead dog. He would do seances with them and believe they gave him advice on how to get us out of the Great Depression, for example.
I love that.
So that is by far the weirdest fact about William Lyon Mackenzie King. But again, there are hundreds. You do not want to read up on him. There are so many. He was a great guy.
Okay, so you oversee the Beaverton, which is a TV show, website. It's satirical and obviously very funny.
Thank you very much.
We were talking about comedy a little bit earlier.
You were.
What do you think about Larry David? Do you think he went too far? And do you think there is a too far in comedy?
Oh, for sure there's a too far, but I don't think it's about subject matter. The reason we're talking about Larry David right now isn't because he joked about the Holocaust, it's because he made a bad joke about the Holocaust. Anytime you're going to tread on a really sensitive subject, I don't think you can say we can't go there, because pretty much any subject you can name, I could probably name 5 stand-ups with amazing jokes about them.
Yeah.
But the difference is they were funny jokes and they went in the right direction. So one rule in comedy that I'm sure you guys are familiar with is the idea of punching up, not punching down. So if you're going to talk about a delicate subject, you know, like the Holocaust or like anything else, the goal is always to target the people in power, or target the oppressors, target the people who committed the atrocity when you're talking about the Holocaust. Never make jokes that punch down on the victims, for example. So now, there are exceptions to every rule, and there's probably exceptions to that rule, but that's a good rule of thumb for comedy. And the reason we're sitting here talking about Larry David is because he clearly and delightfully flouted that rule by making fun of the victims themselves. But it is worth noting out, as you said, not only that Larry David is Jewish, but he's of the age that he almost certainly knew people who went through the Holocaust. And so he has a personal connection to this that people who are so much younger and so far removed from that experience never will. And gallows humor, humor about your own suffering or your people's suffering is something that is always going to exist whether we like it or not.
Yeah. So I heard you went to law school. So my question is,
Right.
how'd you get into comedy?
Well, you know, I mean, as anyone who's been through law school can tell you, it's a fun experience. You just, you hang out most of the day. You don't have a lot going on. It's a torture chamber, and comedy is a relief from all kinds of pressure and lack of fun. So I started writing the student newspaper, the Osgood student newspaper, and ran it for a couple years. And then that wasn't kind of enough of a creative outlet, so I started doing stand-up at night. And just going around to open mics, which was torture of a different kind. It was a very different kind of torture. But so I had a lot of fun doing that, believe it or not. And then when the Beaverton came along, I jumped right in on that and kind of was with that from the ground up. And I actually ended up practicing law for 5 years just because comedy didn't pay the bills for a long time, and law did. But then the Beaverton kind of took off, as you said, so I've been doing that full time for a couple years now.
How would your clients feel when they found out you did stand-up at night?
Oh, I did not tell anyone. There was a lot of lies. I lied a lot. What were you up to last night? Nothing.
So speaking about the Beaverton, so you guys write pretty much fake news stories regularly, and some people seem to think that those are real.
Right.
Let's talk about it.
Yes. Well, I mean, it's interesting because we started the Beaverton in a world in which there was such a thing as the truth, and now we're in a world where there isn't anymore, apparently, because facts and everything are just subject to debate and opinion. So the idea of fake news took on a whole new meaning, obviously, in the Donald Trump era. But one thing that even since the beginning has happened is people online, maybe more than in print, are a little bit more gullible. And when you talk in a newspaper journalistic manner, people tend to believe you. So sometimes, especially when we first started out and we weren't particularly well known yet, we would have articles go viral, not because people loved them as much, but because people thought they were real.
So one of those articles that went viral was the phone bill thing.
Yes. I would point out, again, I mean, not that anyone needs to improve his reputation, but he was very lovely about this, and Chris Hadfield does not actually hold a grudge about this, but he should, because we've heard from multiple people that every time he does a book signing now, people will come up to him and be like, "I'm so sorry about that phone bill. That was so ridiculous." So I feel bad for that. But yeah, that went viral, and not just in Canada where he's obviously a hero, but he's such an international celebrity that went viral in places, not just where they didn't know the Beaverton, but where satire doesn't really exist. We did an interview with a Chinese newspaper, and they had we were trying to talk about the story, and it became very clear we needed to back up and talk about why we weren't in jail for spreading lies. So it was a very fascinating, something we'd never even considered. Of course you can do this, but a lot of the questions we were getting was more, why is the government not stopping you? Which added a different perspective to the conversation.
I definitely asked my grandparents if they've seen the article in China before. Today is actually the 1-year anniversary of the last election. And my question for you is really, what is the impact of Trump on comedy writers?
Every single thing changed. I mean, I don't want to overstate it. The nice thing is we're a little bit removed from it. If you look at comedy in the United States in the last year, particularly satirical comedy, it's become a lot of like looking in your hands and going, oh my God, and also all the jokes are just, can you believe he did this? Like, yeah, we can. He does it every day. So the nice thing of being in Canada is you can be a little bit removed from that. But ultimately, in comedy, and specifically satirical comedy, the comedians are supposed to be the court jester who gets to make fun of the king. And we get to say things to the king that no one else could say because we're doing it in a joke. But now the king is a court jester. He's a joke. So what does the court jester do? Because you can't make fun of the king because he doesn't have a sense of humor, even though he was an absurdist himself. So now you're in this crazy situation where it's almost like shouting into a void because you recognize that with Donald Trump himself, it's almost impossible to top what he actually does. You can't out-absurd him. On that cheering note.
That's an accomplishment. You mentioned that detachment, and we can definitely see that. When it comes to political gaffes, the U.S. as a sandwich would be a mile-long sub. Canada would be like a half-eaten peanut butter jelly sandwich.
Yeah.
In your opinion, what can our politicians do to get a little bit more spicier and easier to satirize?
Ooh, well, I mean, I would say I like that our politicians have maintained a veneer of sanity, but I mean, we're interesting in our own way. I mean, we have this, BuzzFeed listicle of a prime minister who, whatever you may think of his policies, he actively courts celebrity, which is interesting because that is something that I personally haven't seen before. I mean, his dad was a celebrity, but it never felt like he was courting it, whereas Justin Trudeau is. So, one thing that's going to be very interesting going forward is how much Jagmeet Singh goes the same way because he's obviously very popular online as well. So one thing that could happen, and whether we want it to or not, I don't know, is this kind of war of internet fame and the competition, and then poor Andrew Scheer will just be in the back, like still making robocalls on his landline.
All right, I got one question. So the Beaverton sounds really wicked. When can we check it out?
Thank you so much for asking. So we air every Wednesday night at 10 p.m. on Comedy Network, and then we're online the next day, so you can watch it anytime at thebeaverton.com.
So you can watch it after this?
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's what we're going to be doing.
While we're doing the one chip challenge.
I feel so sorry for you.
Thank you.